Imagine the silence of space, an immense, dark, infinite void. Now envision three men enclosed in a small spacecraft, suspended between life and death, Earth and the Moon. It was July 20th, 1969. Humanity held its breath. Millions of people in front of their televisions, radios tuned in from every corner of the planet, eyes fixed on an objective that seemed impossible. They called it Apollo 11. A number that today signifies history, courage, human ingenuity. But behind that name lay a desperate race against time, against errors, against fear, because no one had dared so much before. That day was not only the day man set foot on the moon. It was the day all of humanity understood that even the wildest dreams can become reality. This is not just the story of a space mission. It is the tale of a journey that forever changed our perception of what is possible. It is the untold story of NASA's Apollo 11 and the moon landing. It all began much before 1969. In the 1950s and 1960s, the world was divided into two, on one side the United States, on the other, the Soviet Union. Two superpowers, two ideologies, two visions of the future. It was not just a political or military challenge, it was a race to demonstrate who would lead humanity's destiny. And space became the new battleground. The Soviets struck first. In 1957, they launched Sputnik, the first artificial satellite. And 2 years later, Yuri Gagarin accomplished the feat, becoming the first man in space. The entire world cheered while the United States trembled. President John Kennedy understood that merely catching up was not enough. Setting a goal so audacious that it would turn defeat into victory was necessary. And so, in 1961, he uttered the words that changed history. We choose to go to the moon. Not because it is easy, but because it is hard. It was a promise to the American people, but also an impossible challenge. At that moment, the United States did not even possess the technology to consider such a journey. NASA was given an enormous task, to turn a dream into reality in less than 10 years. An endeavor that would require science, sacrifice, courage, and human lives. Achieving Apollo 11 meant not just building a rocket, but inventing an entire universe of previously non-existent technologies. The Saturn V rocket, standing over 110 meters tall, was designed to propel tons of metal, fuel, and dreams into space. Every component was a risk. Every detail could define the fine line between triumph and tragedy. Engineers worked tirelessly day and night, followed by thousands of workers, technicians, and scientists. A silent army that no one would ever see on television, but that made the mission possible. The fear was not only that of the unknown, it was the awareness that every failed test could cost human lives, and there were many failures. The memory of Apollo 1 weighed like a boulder. On January 27, 1967, during a ground test, a fire in the cabin killed 3 astronauts, Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee. NASA understood the price of error was death. And from that day on, every bolt, every cable, every screw was checked as if the life of the entire world depended on it. The preparation for Apollo 11 was not just engineering, it was an act of faith in human intelligence. Because every simulation, every training, every test was a step into the unknown. The astronauts, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins, were not just men, they were symbols, they were the faces of a humanity about to attempt the impossible. On July 16, 1969, at 9:30 in the morning, Florida shook. A roar cut through the air. And the Saturn V, the most powerful machine ever built by man, rose toward the sky. Millions of people watched indirectly. The eyes of the world were fixed on that rocket carrying not only 3 men but also the hopes of an entire civilization. The journey to the moon was not a straight line. As soon as Earth's orbit was reached, a fundamental maneuver occurred. The command module detached from the main stage of the rocket, turned around, and docked with the lunar module, nicknamed Eagle. The V, the most powerful machine ever built from the air, rose for the world. Only then was the spacecraft ready to embark on the long journey toward its goal. A few minutes later, the Earth was left behind, turning into a small blue globe suspended in the darkness. An image that no one had seen like this before, and that would forever change the perception of our planet: fragile, solitary, precious. On board, Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins followed meticulous procedures. Every move was calculated, every breath monitored. Error was not allowed. Michael Collins remained in command of the main module, which would later remain in lunar orbit. Armstrong and Aldrin, on the other hand, had the most dangerous task: landing on the surface with Eagle. The journey lasted 3 days, 3 days suspended between silence and infinity, 3 days when the whole world held its breath. And then came the most anticipated moment, the descent to the moon. But nothing went as planned. The instruments signaled to the weapons, the computer, overloaded with calculations, began to make errors. For a moment it seemed that everything could fail. From Earth, in Houston, the voices of the flight controllers grew tense. The world didn't know it, but at that moment the mission was at risk of disaster. And to make matters worse, the designated landing point was full of boulders. If they had landed there, Eagle would have overturned, and with it, humanity's dream. Armstrong then took manual control. With icy calm, he guided the module over the uneven terrain, searching for a safe space. Every second consumed precious fuel. Every heartbeat brought the shadow of catastrophe closer. In the end, there was less than 30 seconds of autonomy left. Then a voice. "Houston, here, base of tranquility. Eagle has landed." An unreal silence, followed by an explosion of applause, cheers, tears. The whole world, for the first time, understood that we had made it. It was July 20th, 1969. Man had reached the moon. A few hours after the landing, the hatch of the module opened. Neil Armstrong, with his heart beating stronger than ever, slowly descended the Eagle's ladder. The entire world watched, 650 million people, the largest live television broadcast in history. An entire planet, united, facing a single moment. And then, the words that would remain etched forever. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Lunar dust rose under his boot. At that moment, the dream of generations became reality. Aldrin joined him shortly after. The two astronauts walked on the silent surface, planted the American flag, set up scientific instruments, and collected rock samples. Every gesture was laden with meaning, every movement was history. Meanwhile, Michael Collins, remaining in orbit, observed from above, alone, but aware of being part of something no one would forget. On Earth, people applauded, cried, hugged. For one night, political boundaries and the world's divisions dissolved. On the moon, not just 3 men had arrived. All of humanity had arrived. Was there an announcement of a value import on an assiduous typo? To commutate the face, an exit soared in difference and brilliance. Common in the short chupa. After 21 hours on the lunar surface, it was time to return. Armstrong and Aldrin ascended into the Eagle module, leaving behind footprints that would remain forever. The ascent operation towards the command module was still full of uncertainties, a malfunction, an error, and they would have remained trapped on the moon, destined to die far from Earth. The White House had also prepared a speech in case they never returned. But once again, human determination triumphed over fear. Eagle detached from the surface and rejoined the command module. Collins welcomed them, and together the 3 astronauts began the journey back home. On July 24, 1969, the spacecraft splashed down in the Pacific Ocean. The heroes were safely returned to Earth. The dream had been realized. Apollo 11 was not just an American victory. It was a triumph for all of humanity, as that day we proved to ourselves that there are no insurmountable barriers.